So we're one match week in to the 2025 Women's Euros then, and we're here to analyse all the games and look at what's happened so far at this European Championships. Harry, let's start with Group A, probably your favourite group, as you keep telling us on the live streams. Do you want to summarise what's happened?
I think it's been a brilliant match week one, and I think it always had the potential to. It was the closest group, and I think it's four sides where you just never really know what's going to happen. And in match week one, we saw two quite surprising results, really. One, because on paper we expected a different result, and the other because when we actually watched the game, one side should have won and they went on to lose the match. Starting with Iceland-Finland, absolutely brilliant from Finland. Massive credit to them. They've come into this. A lot of people expect them to finish bottom of the group and to not really challenge, and they've gone out in match week one and they've beaten everyone's dark horses, which I think is a massive achievement for them and credit to them. I thought Katarina Kosala was absolutely superb in this game, and obviously she did eventually get the winning goal after the sixth time that she cut inside and tried to find the top right corner. But absolutely brilliant from Finland. I thought they defended really well, and they came forward with pace. They were direct and they caused Iceland problems. That being said, really poor from Iceland. Not good enough, especially in the final third. They just failed to create anything. And even when they did, the likes of Jonsdottir and Eriksdottir were missing important chances, especially that one late on for Svindis Jonsdottir. Massive opportunity for the youngster, and just tries too hard to be perfect. Tries to find the top right corner and probably should just look to slot it past the goalkeeper. But overall, Iceland weren't good enough. Finland, a massive win. A massive win for them. And they've put themselves in a really good position because in the other game that was kicked off later, the hosts disappointingly lost to Norway. And not disappointing in the performance, but disappointing in the fashion they lost. To play as well as they did in the first half, take a 1-goal lead into half-time, I thought was really strong. Second half, I thought a different country had walked out because that's the way they played. Stierlai had an absolute shocker. She lost Hegerberg for the corner and then stuck it in her own net. I don't like to criticise players, and because that is it's a very difficult performance. I'm sure she'll be her biggest critic, but that wasn't good enough, and that really let Switzerland down. But overall, I think Switzerland got it slightly wrong. They tried to sit deep and try and consolidate what they had, and that just allowed Norway to come onto them, where Switzerland were actually getting more joy by pushing onto Norway and being aggressive and causing issues for them. So when they tried to go a little bit defensive, that actually played into Norway's hands. So frustrating, a lot to learn for Switzerland, and I'm sure that they'll look to build on it in the next few match weeks, but a disappointing loss for them, and I think Norway will know that they got very fortunate to win that match.
Yeah, I don't think Switzerland got remarkably worse in the second half. I think Norway got better and Switzerland made some annoying errors, but I think overall Switzerland still played very well in that match and were very unlucky to not come away with a result. First half, Norway had 2 shots, direct just 0.09 xG. In the second half, they had 6 shots with 1.81 xG. But there, the expected goals isn't really a great way of measuring how they performed in the second half, because you've got the penalty in there for Ada Hegerberg and the header. Both of the penalties record a very high expected goals tally because they almost always go in. Hegerberg decided to break that statistic. And then the header from really close range. So Norway, I don't think played particularly well here. I think looking forwards in their group, they face Finland next. That's going to be really interesting to see how they get on, because Finland are excellent in match week one.
Yeah, and especially they keep letting Kosala just cut in on her right foot and shoot like Iceland did.
But Arna Dottir was just nowhere near her in that game. Kosala played phenomenally, but yeah, just got to stand her up.
Yeah, I think what the two results, though, have done in match week one is they've set Group A up really nicely, because the two sides who were potentially expected to get out of the group are the two sides on 0 points. And the two sides who, I know Norway obviously on paper, but we don't. They are a bit of a weird team at international times. But especially with Finland, the fact that the team who were expected to finish bottom of the group are currently top on it with 3, I think sets up the group really nicely going forwards.
Yeah, ranked 26th in the world, Finland. They came into this side relative minnows, this tournament relative minnows, but they've played really well. They've played themselves into a position where they may qualify out of the group stage, which many people would have put money against. So yeah, they've got Norway and Switzerland. It won't be easy, but they've put themselves in a really good position with a win over Iceland. Iceland, of course, with the red card for Antonsdottir as well, but that one very much deserved. Can have no complaints about that one. Really clumsy, double yellow. Let's move on then to Group B. We'll start with Belgium 0, Italy 1. Much tighter than the other match. Do you think that's a fair result? Belgium struggling really to offer much in attacking areas.
Yeah, they did. I think again, what we saw from Belgium was they had a bit of the ball, and I think they did. I think they started brighter. They actually settled into the game really nicely, and they did start to have a little bit more control in the game. But once they got to the final third, they just gave the ball back to Italy. And credit to Italy on that part. I thought Salvi was brilliant and deservedly got into Team of the Week. I thought, again, Lenzini played well. Overall, defensively, I thought Italy looked really solid. And again, it's such a characteristic of Italian football teams is the defence having an impact not only in the defensive third, but also in the attacking third. And by that, I mean, I think I love not only again, we saw the fullbacks, the wing backs were very, very good defensively, but how they operated and impacted in the final third was absolutely brilliant. It was Guglielmo who played the ball across to Caruso when she scored, and that just shows how they contribute in both thirds. But also the wide centre halves making those bursts inside. It's something that I think. I always kind of picture Alessandro Bastoni doing it in the men's game, but Italy adopting it in the women's game as well, and it worked wonders because it's basically just like adding another player to your attack, and because Belgium aren't going to drop another player back, it means you've got that extra player advantage. But I thought Italy's defence were brilliant defensively, and they did well to kind of stutter any Belgium attacks, and they helped contribute going forwards. It was a really close game, but as you say, Belgium were really lacklustre in front of goal, and Italy, when they got their chances, they took them, and that is the difference. Is that they didn't. They did create better chances, but they also took their chances, and it was a brilliant goal from Caruso just before half time that, for me, completely changed the game.
And that was the difference. Italy have players like Ariana Caruso who can step up in moments like she did. The one issue I have for Italy was the number of yellow cards they picked up. 4 yellow cards in one match is concerning when you've got to consider that suspensions are only 2 yellow cards, I believe. So they've got to be mindful of that. They won't want to pick up yellows in their next game and then have players suspended for Spain. That would be poor. Equally, they don't want to get to the first round of the knockouts if they can get there and have players suspended because of suspensions in the group stage. So that will be slightly concerning, but overall a really impressive performance from Italy. And given how Belgium looked really lacklustre in attack and Portugal were completely torn apart by Spain, I think they've got to be most people's favourites now to finish second.
Yeah, 100%. As you say, Portugal were really not good enough, and that was a tough watch. Credit to Spain. Again, a lot of people obviously saying how poor Portugal did, but it's important to say Spain absolutely tore them apart. We've seen the other big nations come into this tournament and start slowly and not quite hit the ground running. Spain scored 2 goals in 7 minutes. Absolutely brilliant.
They scored after 90 seconds, which summarised their game, really. It was just too easy for Spain. The match momentum graph looks ridiculous, but it's might as well just be a block of red. The stats behind the game, 71% of possession. Portugal barely touched the football. 4.3 expected goals in a European Championship group stage game. That is outrageously good from Spain. And the way they moved the ball, the way they dictated the tempo, the way that they were able to move from back to front, sublimely, and it was excellent from Spain. Just across the board, flawless performance, and thoroughly deserved 5 goals from it.
Yeah, again, it's one of those where the chance of scoring 5 goals is impressive, but it's the high quality of chances that they create is absolutely absurd. How they manage, because a lot of people will look at the goals they score and not think they're brilliant because it's just Esther Gonzalez tapping it in from 2 yards, but how on earth do they manage to keep making the space for her to have such good opportunities? They're not relying on players to score 20-yard belters like we've seen and like we'll touch on in a moment. But Spain do so well to create some brilliant chances. I mean, Gonzalez 2 well-taken finishes, don't get me wrong, but she could just stand there and watch her teammates move the ball around so freely, so brilliantly, and they'd find her in the penalty area with so much time and space, and she'd just slot it home.
Yeah, any team that creates 6 big chances in a game of football are the dominant one. They were excellent in this game, Spain. I think it obviously there was some aspects from Portugal where they fell apart in there. I think the emotion of the game got to them a bit as well. Obviously, with the passing of Diogo Jota, that clearly hit quite a few of the Portugal players quite hard. So, yeah, I think that made life difficult, and so difficult circumstances to try and play a game of football in. But ultimately, they just couldn't compete at all with Spain. It was tough to watch, really, because Spain just completely overwhelmed their opposition. And let's move forwards then to Group C. Group C was An interesting one. We'll start with Denmark 0, Sweden 1. Not the most convincing performance from Sweden, but deserved victory, I'd say.
Yeah, this for me was exactly how we expected the game to go. Denmark would be defensive and they would be solid and they'd pack a punch on the counter. Sweden would have more of the ball, more of the dominance and would control the play, but obviously had to be careful and would find it difficult to break Denmark down. And that is exactly what happened. We saw 60, 70 minutes of Sweden having the ball, struggling to break Denmark down. Denmark would win the ball back, high speed on the counter, and they'd get away. I think we didn't see as much counter threat from Denmark as I thought, and I did think that apart from Pernille Harder having a lot of close efforts, I thought the front three let them down a little bit in terms of that counter-attacking aspect.
I think Vangsgaard really struggled to hold that ball up in there, and Signe Brun, to be fair, didn't come on and offer much more. That was slightly concerning. Yeah. So we'll see how that works against Germany, where actually they probably won't be looking to hold up the ball, but instead looking to run in behind. I mean, you look at how Poland played, there's a bit of hold up from Pale, but a lot of it was running in behind. So maybe that game will be suited more to Denmark. But in this one, they couldn't hold the ball up front, and then they kept turning over possession. Sweden kept coming forward.
Yeah, and for Sweden, I think they would have expected this kind of game. I think a lot of people were starting to get frustrated, but Sweden did well to be patient. I thought they were a little bit wasteful at times.
Only a little bit. 18 shots in this game, only 4 on target.
That is quite wasteful.
Outrageous. 2.21 XG. They just couldn't take their chances. And this is the problem we spoke about with Sweden before kickoff, is there just wasn't enough consistency in this team. When Fridolina Rolfo isn't fit to start as your attacker, you end up with a front line of Yonogi, Blacksenius and Carnery, who on their day are excellent players. And we saw glimpses, I think, from both the wide players, not so much from Blacksenius, was really disappointed by her performance. But they're all inconsistent players. And so when you're depending on players who don't always show up, you can't be sure they're going to score. And I think that was what was shown in this game. So they just didn't find the goal. It's Philip Angeldal, an incredibly consistent player who kept getting in the right sort of places, kept getting opportunities, was unlucky not to score earlier in the game, and then it was a really well taken goal to give Sweden the win. But I think we saw from Sweden that they just weren't consistent enough, weren't a big enough threat on when they came forwards, and I think that was slightly worrying. They were wasteful with their chances, but with Rolfo coming back, I think that should be somewhat dealt with. We'll see what happens, but yeah, I thought Sweden looked promising, but definitely stuff to work on and definitely wasteful in front of goal.
Yeah, a moment of magic won in this game, and that's absolutely fine. That happens at times, but yeah, they need to improve. They'll look to play better against Poland in the week, and they'll build on to Germany in about a week's time. But overall, not bad from Sweden, not bad from Denmark either. I think there's plenty of positives to take for Denmark, but both sides have got stuff to go and work on. I think it was a pretty balanced and probably the most predictable and most expected result that we've seen in the whole of Match League 1.
Yeah, what wasn't expected was the fight that Poland put up. Germany 2, Poland 0. Didn't feel like a game where Poland should... I mean, Poland, realistically coming into this game, would have expected to be on the end of quite a difficult game. But they played incredibly well. First half, they kept it 0-0 through some really strong defending. I thought Dudek was excellent for Poland and made it really difficult for Germany to deliver balls into the box. And Poland suffocated Germany. Germany kept trying to come forwards, but Poland was so disciplined, so regimented when they sprung forwards. Pajor fought for the ball, was so physical up there, and that was really important for their success. And yeah, I was really proud of it. I thought Poland put in a really good performance. When you nullify Germany to... they had 25 shots in this game, Germany, but only 6 were on target. Wow. That's impressive from Poland. And 2 of those were goals for Germany. One was Brand cutting inside and scoring an absolute belter. And the other was Brand cutting inside and putting a ball onto the head of Lea Schuler. Both goals that required huge individual quality. But from a tactical point of view, Germany were too rigid, too slow, and Poland were able to remain disciplined. And their box defending was excellent. And they stopped Germany from being able to be much of a threat.
Yeah, 100%. To hold the Euro 2022 finalists for 52 minutes on your tournament debut is mightily, mightily impressive. And credit to Poland and Nina Patalon and her coaching staff, because they did a very, very good job. As you say, they just frustrated Germany. They made it really difficult. They had that perfect balance between being disciplined, but also when they got the opportunities, they sprung forward. And I tell you what, Ayo Pajor could have easily scored in this game. And Katrin made some brilliant saves. Obviously, Guilia Gwyn with a phenomenal tackle, and it's a shame that tackle has put her out for the tournament. But a goal-saving tackle from Germany's captain. And overall, I thought Poland played immensely. And all it took, the problem was, not the problem for Poland, but luckily for Germany, all it took was to kind of just unleash Buell and Brand. Because in the second half, they look like completely different players. They've been told to just go out there and destroy, and that's exactly what they did. Picking up the ball, being direct, cutting inside, going one way, going the other, and in the end, Poland couldn't keep up, and Julia Brand with an absolutely phenomenal strike and a massive part to play in Germany's win. And what I think, yes, there's obviously massive negatives for Germany that tactically it didn't go quite right in the first 45 minutes. But I think that
Didn't throughout the game.
It
They
didn't-
didn't
it
really.
didn't.
Like they freed up Brand more with the injury
But
to Gwyn.
I think what you put in there is that being rigid against stronger opposition will be more reliable and potentially will work a little bit longer where it is more of a tactical battle. But what it shows is that when you need to get win these games and need to be creative, just telling Buell and Brand to go out there and play is simply enough because they've got the quality to completely tear apart an opposition, and that's exactly what they did. We said it on stream. It's like on 50 minutes, Brand and Buell decided to turn up to the Euros, and they did that, and they had a massive impact. And good for Brand, good for Schuler to open up her Euros account as well. But overall, Germany did well to recover that because it could have got dicey.
It's also the case that Germany won't play like that against top opposition.
No.
They were very high in Poland's half, and oftentimes we saw them having to defend transitions, and they looked a little bit shaky in those moments. I think Germany were better set up when they're playing defensively against a top team, or a bit more defensively, and then looking to counter themselves. They've got so much pace in that front line. If they can break in transitional moments, that's when they'll have joy, especially if they go and meet England in the quarterfinals based on their performance. And let's move on then to Group D. We'll start with Wales, Netherlands though. Wales struggled really to make anything happen in this game, and Netherlands by the second half were knocking about for fun.
Yeah, this was slightly different to the Poland game. I think that in the first half it was more, don't get me wrong, Poland played well, and I thought they defended quite decently. Box defending was okay. They got away with it a couple times. From Wales, there's a lot of just smashing it directly up. Whereas Poland and other sides we've seen put a lot and Finland and that, when they went long, it was forwards and positive. Yeah. But I thought James did it a lot, and Clark had one where she just palmed it direct. I don't really know what was going on, because if you're gonna go long, if you go forwards, you relieve pressure. If you kick it directly up in the air, that just comes straight back down again. You haven't gone anywhere. You haven't changed anything. So I thought there was a lot of
more
that.
pressure, if anything.
It was half clearances from Wales. I thought the box defending was okay, but it was taking 2 or 3 jabs to get a ball clear, rather than someone making full contact, cleanly hitting the ball and getting it out of the penalty area. It would be skimmed on by someone and then headed away, and then eventually they'd get it out for a throw. But rather than getting it forwards and being positive with it or getting that clearance first time, so I think that on another day, Netherlands playing better would have scored more here. And I think that if it wasn't for Miedema scoring our 100th goal just for half time, I think things could have got difficult for Netherlands, because if we'd gone into half time 0-0, different story. But Wales, I thought they defended valiantly, but it was one of those where it was a when, not if. When we watched Poland-Germany, there was a time in that match where I thought, are Germany going to score now? Whereas in Wales-Netherlands, it was one of those where Netherlands were going to score eventually, because Wales just weren't doing enough. I don't think that just defensively it wasn't as convincing, and there wasn't, and the organisation was a little bit lacklustre. I thought in the midfield they got overran, but that's no surprise. You're playing with a 2-player midfield, and you've got a midfield 3. Netherlands midfield 3 running at you, and then they caused all kinds of problems. Grunen, Captain, and Van der Donk. That's an incredible midfield 3. Not only have they got an extra player, but the quality compared to Wales's pivot was just miles apart, and that showed, because I think that's where Wales lost this game, was that midfield fight, and just not enough grit in there. I feel like Wales had to dig a little bit deeper. But credit to Netherlands, because they turned it on in the second half and they managed to win the game pretty convincingly.
I think the goal changed it massively. First half, Wales were able to fight, like you say. Viviana Miedema's strike coming right on the stroke of half time made the difference. Second half, Wales sort of fell apart. I think you mentioned there the box defending was okay. First half, really decent. Second half, non-existent. The ball to the back post should have been dealt with. Powell was just nowhere near Esme Brugt, and she tucked it home easily. And the same really with Palova. No one marked her. There's 3 players for Wales, all in the same, all with jobs to do, and none of them did them. If one player in that 3 had had gone and done their job, had dealt with the ball, had dealt with the situation, they wouldn't have conceded there, because you could have just closed down the ball. The first one was the left centre half. I think it was Gemma Evans didn't close down Daniel van der Donk on the right hand side, and then Palou was completely unmarked in the middle, and there were 2 players who could have come across and dealt with that. Neither of them did it, and so they just left Palou in loads of space in the middle of the penalty area. Really stupid idea, because then she scores. Wales showed the quality just isn't there right now. They struggled to be able to come forward. They offered no threat, really. And that was the difference. Poland had moments of respite where they were able to get the ball forward with those vertical balls. Payol running in behind. They almost scored once or twice. Wales, there was none of that. They failed to register a shot on target. I thought it was really tough to watch them just launching the ball at Fishlock, and she just didn't win a header because Villa Berman's double her size. So, yeah, tough watch for Wales. I think it'll be interesting how they get on against France, but based on how France played, that could be a tough afternoon again for the Welsh.
Yeah, very much so. The other thing to touch on for Netherlands is that, unlike the other sides, like Germany, who huffed and puffed a bit, Netherlands didn't create anything, but what they did create, they were really clinical.
Well, they didn't create 6 big chances, they just missed 4 of them. They really struggled to put the chances away, really. But, it could have been more in this game. Definitely, I think, you see Lynette Beerenstein come on and score. That was ruled offside. That was kind of a close one.
Yeah.
So it could have been a lot worse. Wales, I think they'll take 3-0, especially in the light of the other result. Let's get on to that last game then. France 2, England 1. Really poor performance from England, Harry. It started well. After the controversial offside decision, France went on to score 2 goals quite quickly. Second half, England came back right at the end, but overall, not a good performance from the Lionesses.
No, it wasn't. We're not going to come on here like some people and just scream and shout about random opinions and get really angry at it.
We did that on straight.
We did that on
so if you want to go back and watch that, feel free to do so.
But it wasn't good enough from England. As you say, it was a bright start, and again, I think a lot of people have forgotten that England did start well, did take control, and did score a goal that I think was very harshly ruled off because it just wasn't offside. But a weird one. But I think that it was the reaction from that goal that England didn't react well enough. And I think there was a bit of frustration, and France got on top. They took the momentum. And I actually thought that England rode the wave out nicely. I thought France got on top, and then England just started to work their way back into it. And then England lost the ball, coming forwards. France hit them in transition, and they scored. And then England collapsed and conceded again straight after that, a few minutes later. And then everyone started to panic, both on the pitch, off the pitch, in the crowd, everything. And I think that, for me, the way I look at it is that it wasn't that England played well for 15 minutes and then France dominated the next half an hour. France did have a really good spell. And then it kind of balanced out again, but England just got caught out twice. And then, because again, it's after the second goal, it steadied and the game became balanced again. Because I think overall it was a balanced affair. Just England got caught out in transition twice in a matter of minutes, and that completely changed the landscape of the game. And credit to France. Obviously, I'm not taking away anything from France because they did play very well. And quite similarly, you could say that they rode out the England wave when England started well, grew into the game, and then hit England on the break and did really well with the pace advantage they had in the transition to burst away and score. And France did play well throughout the whole match. I was really impressed by what they had to offer. But yeah, England, I thought a balanced game, but just a few moments of madness littered across the pitch, littered across the 90 minutes, really let the Lionesses down.
Yeah, I want to do a proper tactical analysis for this game, so look out for that over the next few days. But in terms of just a few of my early thoughts, I think midfield was really poor. The problem with how England are trying to build up at the moment is that it leaves nobody in the middle of the pitch, which is a huge problem.
Yeah.
You had Georgia Stanway and Lauren James. I think a personnel selection was poor in there because you've got Georgia Stanway, who's barely back from injury and looked really leggy throughout this game, and Lauren James, who's literally just back from injury. It's a second game and her first start since coming back from injury, and had to go for 60 minutes. I think that was such poor use of players. Lauren James, in that moment, would have been much, much more electric because we saw it, right? That first 15 minutes, she was excellent. You put that in the last half an hour, suddenly that changed the game for England. But it left England down a player in midfield for most of the game because Lauren James clearly wasn't ready to start. That was really poor management of the squad. And the issue is you're dropping. So what England are looking to do in build-up is form a back three by dropping walls between the centre halves, push the fullbacks really high, and then have a midfield two. But when you don't have a midfield two, because you've got Lauren James who likes to float around and Georgia Stanway, who's often in this game, was trying to pull wide as well, there was no one in midfield for England. And it was bizarre watching it because you just look forward and you think, well, sorry, what has happened here? Is there a Bermuda Triangle or something? Our midfield has gone missing there. And it was so difficult then to progress the ball through the field. And we saw that multiple times. And that's where both the goals came from, where the only pass to play was a direct pass into Russo. And so they were doing that. And through the first goal, it's Russo, and they managed to flick it onto Stanway, who's leaning to it. She wasn't really sharp enough to get to the ball, tries to poke a desperate pass through to Hemp. There's not enough on it. And France break away down the right-hand side. Carter completely outpaced by Delphine Cascarino. And then the other goal, it comes right into Russo's feet, and it is a foul from Lacroix, in my opinion. Feel free to debate that in the comment section. But Lacroix slides in. I don't think she gets enough of the ball for me. It falls into France's possession. They break down the right-hand side, and because Lucy Bronze is super high and comes back in and defends like a muppet, I cannot describe what she was trying to do there, running into the ball and then giving it to Baltimore on the floor. It was really frustrating. Leah Williamson as well, not good in this game. Both goals, I think she could have done a lot more. Nowhere near Katoto or dealing with the ball at the front post of the first goal. And as much as Bronze acted rashly, Williamson was so static.
The problem is, I think the second goal is difficult because Williamson did deal with it and the ball was going to go out for a corner before Bronze flicked it back into play.
Yeah.
And also, if you're defending and your teammate runs straight in across you, falls over the football, it catches you out a bit. So I don't think Williamson did too badly for that one because she would have put it out for a corner, but Bronze went, do you know what, Baltimore? Have it back like they're playing for Chelsea again. But yeah, I did think, and again, credit to France because they saw that space that England had in midfield, and Sakina Karchaoui ran riot in this game.
So did Selma Batcher. Their left back was playing at like right central midfield off again because you just run across, use all the space in there, and create chances.
The midfield three for France, I think it's a brilliant balance of Gayoro, Jean-Francois, and Karchaoui, but they completely dictated the game because they won that midfield battle, and then they had the license to do whatever they wanted with that football because England just weren't getting involved in the midfield fight. And if you win the midfield battle in football, you're going to dictate the game, you're going to have chances. And although England came on strong towards the end and we did have a bit of a glimmer of hope at the end of the stream that England might get a point.
England really should have got a point.
There were definitely chances.
I think the one positive you can take was the spirit at the end there. To see Serena make the right change and really go for the game was good, and to see England putting the ball in the box, players jumping at it. The one frustration I had was Clinton and two not reacting. There was an Agumang of Hemp, I think it was, actually put the ball across the box. Someone put the ball across the box for England, and neither of them jumped on it. That was really frustrating for me. A goal could have come there. That's football. It just didn't, but it wouldn't have been deserved. I think the refereeing performances aside, and they were poor. It was a really poor performance from Tessa Olofsson. Should have been better at this level, but ultimately France were the better side after the goal. I see both sides of the argument. People will say, oh, France are the better side, so they deserve the win. But ultimately, do France have that sort of dominance if there isn't such a major game state change on that England goal decision? It's tough to say. Overall, I think France deserved, though, to win this match.
Yeah. From a neutral point of view, it was a brilliant way to end. I say that like I'm a neutral. I'm not. But if you look at it through the eyes of a neutral, what a way to end Match Week 1. And it was a really good Match Week 1 of the Euros. I think, it's from an England point of view, it's a negative note to end it on. But across the 12 games we saw, not 12, 8 games we saw, can't do maths.
You've seen some extra ones,
I've watched some great ones. But across the 8 games we saw in Match Week 1, it's been absolutely brilliant. So do make sure join us for Match Week 2, which starts today.
Yes, few hours' time. Join us this afternoon as we're back for Norway versus Finland and Switzerland versus Iceland. Remember, we're covering every single match of this summer's European Championships on this channel, so join us live this evening. That, though, is everything from us today. Thank you guys very much for watching, and we'll see you next time.
See ya.